Tiller from the third coat. So just want to show you something like about, you know, hard to access areas. So this is on top of a roof here, and but there's not much of it, you know. Like there's only, I mean, this will probably be done. Like there's a lot of scraping to do because it's in very bad shape. A lot of peeling paint and whatnot. Some putty that has to be replaced and what. But there's not a lot of it. There's a little bit behind on the other side, but I'll do that from the other end. But with this one, a lot of times, you know, homeowners or professional painters, they don't pay a lot of attention to difficult to access areas. You know, like this one here. This area is in a lot worse shape than the rest of the house, and that's probably because it's a bit tricky to access. So you know, they just sort of neglect it, or even when they do paint these sort of areas, they probably just sort of come up and do a bit of this and that, and you know, get down just because it's not so visible. It's sort of out of sight. Well, not really out of sight from the street. When you go down, you can clearly see that it's in pretty bad shape. But you know, when you do a paint job, and you know, it looks all right for a while. You know, so that's what I mean by people just come up to these sort of tricky areas, tricky access areas, and because it's tricky access, they don't want to spend a lot of time on it. So they just sort of come up once and you know, get it out of the way. But you know, that's actually counterintuitive. You should actually make sure that you spend a lot of time, more effort on these tricky areas than the ones downstairs. And that's exactly because it's tricky to get to. So whenever you do get to it, you want to make sure that you do a good job so that you don't have to come back up here for a long time, yeah, to do some work. So, you know, I mean, you might repaint the ground floor in 5 or 10 years or whatever, but you know, you don't want to be coming up here every 5 years to do this paint job, because it's just a bit tricky and might get expensive or difficult to get up to. But anyway, so because there's not much of it, it's not worth getting a scaffold in. So I've just done a little bit of custom sort of design, little sort of rungs, almost like ladder rungs, you know, just because the roof is pretty slippery, and up there in that area where I've laid down those pieces of wood, that's got quite a decent slope. So where I'm standing now, it's not as steep, so I can stand up on here no problems. But I wouldn't be able to do that on that part of the roof. So that's why I've removed some of these roofing screws and put some heavy duty angles in there, and you know, driven them down into the roof battens. And you know, pretty sure, I mean, when I sort of shake it all, like it doesn't move at all, so I'm pretty sure it can handle a couple of days work. So even if I do happen to sort of slip or whatever, I mean, this part of the roof is pretty safe, so I'm pretty sure I'll be fine. I mean, you know, and you know what I've done is, so this part of the angle is fixed to the roof batten, and you know, the timber itself is not even fixed to the angle. It's sort of almost freestanding, but that's fine because my weight is going to be on here, so it will just be pushing downwards. The timber can't go anywhere but down, so don't really need to fix it to the angle very much. as long as it doesn't move. I mean, I've put a few screws in there just to stop it from moving, and that should be fine. So I'll get back to you in a couple of days if I'm still alive and let you know how I've gone. Have a good one. Tillo again from the third coat. So just following up on this job on top of a roof here. I've just finished, removed all the timber pieces, put the screws back onto the roof. Make sure, if you're going to do this, I mean, I don't recommend it, because I mean, you got to have pretty good balance and you know, be reasonably fit and good coordination, because it's pretty dangerous. I mean, and even the kind of shoes that you're wearing. I actually bought these sort of they're like sort of beach shoes, which are supposed to be pretty good even on wet surfaces, so not too slippery even if I sort of, when I walk on this smooth roof, but on top of that it would be pretty slippery. But so just do whatever you can to make yourself pretty safe up there, and if you don't feel safe, just don't do it. So you know, the point about this whole thing is that, you know, just make sure especially if you own a house, or you know, you need a paint job done and you've got some high or difficult to access areas, you got to make sure that those get done properly, just so that you won't have to spend money on them for a long time, because just the access to get to these areas costs a lot of money, you know, just the time, and you know, if I had to get a scaffolding, I mean, that would have cost a fortune, and this way, you know, there was not as much cost involved, but it just took longer, obviously, because you had to be pretty careful, so it was pretty slow going. But you know, hopefully they won't have to you know, repaint this area up here for a fair few years. And you know, I did a lot of scraping and sanding and priming and 2 top coats. I mean, unfortunately this sort of red colour, dark red colour, it's not gonna, like, it doesn't, you know, I don't recommend it. Any dark and bright colours like these don't last very well, just because of the sun. But you know, they just I mean, changing the colours on the whole house would cost them quite a bit of money, extra money, because you know, they already had colour-bond gutters installed almost all around the house, which matched the, you know, the existing red. So you know, just to change those as well would have been, you know, would have cost a bit. And then, you know, so they thought that it's best to just leave it the same colour and you know, hope that it lasts pretty well. I mean, look, I've done what I could, and you know, the rest is the good thing though is that on these old houses, I mean, I don't know how old this is, but it's pretty damn old. The actual materials that they used when they built the timber is pretty good quality, so it doesn't, you know, swell and shrink with the weather as you know, modern wood does. You know, the pretty cheap and nasty timbers that are available nowadays, so they really move a lot with the weather. But this stuff, this old stuff, it doesn't stretch and shrink as much, so I'm hoping that you know, it will last a fair while. The only thing is, I mean, you know, it's obviously going to fade. At the moment it's pretty bright, so it will fade over time. There's nothing you can do about that. Especially reds fade a lot, quite easily. But anyway, so So yeah, hope if you're gonna do something similar, just stay safe and don't do anything if you don't feel safe. And you know, I mean, you know, like if I didn't have this bottom roof here, which is very safe to stand and walk on, I wouldn't have attempted this top part. I mean, I actually would, but I've got to say that you shouldn't, yeah, because you know, I mean, just because I'm willing to do it and you know, I feel safe doing it, the only reason I do that is because I know that I take my time. I don't rush. You know, when you do this sort of work, you got to make sure that you take your time and be patient. Don't rush. And you know, like painting, house painting is a game of patience at the best of times. Even when you're downstairs, you know, doing an interior job, it's a lot to do with patience and, you know, doing all the details right. And it's even more so when you're walking on top of a tricky roof, a slippery roof, you know. So yeah, take your time, don't be silly, and you'll get there eventually. Alright, have a good day. See ya.